I think through this pandemic, Canadians have seen and have a right to expect responsible leadership. And unfortunately, that's not what we've always seen from the likes of Erin O'Toole or even more, Maxime Bernier.
Hey, Mr. Trudeau, you're the irresponsible politician. Remember what you did at the last general election? You promoted hatred and division in between Canadians. You said that good Canadians are the ones that decided to have the vaccine and bad one are the unvaccinated one. You know, we are promoting freedom. We want to unite everybody under the freedom umbrella.
Hello and welcome to the show. I'm Christopher Gillina. We'll be discussing critical issues with Maxime Bernier, a prominent Canadian politician and former member of parliament. Bernier served as a cabinet minister in the Harper government and made headlines when he departed from the Conservative Party in 2018 to establish the People's Party of Canada, which he now leads. Known for his unwavering commitment to liberty, individual rights, and limited government, Mr. Bernier has been at the forefront of advocating for fundamental freedoms, including opposing Trudeau's lockdowns and vaccine mandates, advocating to end mass immigration to Canada, and championing freedom of expression. Mr. Bernier, thank you for joining me today. How are you?
Thank you, Chris. I'm very pleased to be with you.
Great, thank you. Could you just start by telling us about yourself and about the core values of the PPC and what you stand for as a party?
Yes, absolutely. We created the People's Party of Canada 5 years ago based on 4 principles: individual freedom, personal responsibility, respect, and fairness. And all our policies are in line with these 4 principles. And, like you said in the beginning, I decided to quit the Conservative Party of Canada in 2018 because, they were not conservative anymore. And that's still the case today. They don't have the courage to fight for real Western civilization values, conservative values, family values. They were not there to fight for us when we needed the opposition, the conservative opposition in Ottawa during the COVID hysteria. So I'm very pleased that in 2018, we decided to create the People's Party. And Chris, like I like to say, we are doing politics differently because, for us, we are doing politics based on ideas with conviction and passion. And if, what we are saying a day, it's not that popular that day, we won't look at survey or polling. We will continue to speak about what we believe, knowing that, the more we speak about our values, the more support we'll have. So that's why we're not doing politics by polling. And I must say that we are growing because we started the party in 2018 at 0%, 2019, our first election, 1.6%, the last election in 2021, 5%. And I believe that this party will grow. And we will be ready for the next general election. And as you may know, this federal election in Canada may only happen in October 2025, but we will be ready and we'll have a candidate in every riding. So that will give the opportunity for every single Canadian to be able to vote in line with their values.
You briefly mentioned your opposition to Trudeau's lockdowns and vaccine mandates and how your party stood up for the Freedom Convoy protests in 2022. As you know, just last month, the federal court ruled that Trudeau's use of the Emergencies Act during the Freedom Convoy protests was unreasonable and unconstitutional, emphasizing the decision was outside of the scope of the law and violated the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. How does the PPC view this ruling, and what measures does the PPC propose to ensure that government actions respect constitutional rights and uphold the rule of law in similar situations in the future?
Yeah, we were very happy with that decision. Actually, it's what I said and we said during the COVID hysteria, during that Freedom Convoy, and just after it, when, Trudeau did invoke the Emergencies Act, the martial law. I said at that time that it was unconstitutional and illegal, because if you look in that act, there's at least two conditions for the federal government to be able to invoke that legislation. It's an exceptional legislation. And the first one is a big danger for the democracy of our country, like an insurrection. And the other condition is, that must be the last resource that you're using to fight that violence in your country, and that conspiracy to change the government without using democratic ways. So, and you must be able to prove that it was the last tool that you use in your tools box. That being said, that was not the case. So that judge said, no, that was illegal and constitutional. And he said what we were saying during the Freedom Convoy, that was a peaceful protest in Ottawa. And we didn't. Nobody was violent at that time, and after it also. So that was a great decision. But don't forget, Chris, it happened a couple of months after the Trudeau government appointed a judge, Judge Rouleau, because Trudeau wanted to be sure that he will be clean of his action when he did invoke the Emergency Act. And Rouleau said, oh no, Mr. Trudeau, you had good reason to invoke the act, and everything is okay. So now we had last week a judge at the federal court who said, no, that was illegal and unconstitutional. So that's a very good decision. And I hope that in the near future, we'll have politicians in Ottawa that will respect our Constitution, because we don't need to change our Constitution. We need to change politicians. We need to have politicians that will respect the Constitution. And, that's part of our platform. That's our program. We don't want to reopen the Constitution. We don't want to change the Constitution. We just want the federal government to respect the Constitution. By doing that, we'll have a constitutional peace in Canada. Every province will be equal, and we'll have a smaller government in Ottawa that won't interfere in provincial jurisdictions, and a federal government that will respect the Constitution, including the Charter of Rights. So let's put the right politicians in charge, and everything will be okay for this country.
You mentioned how this ruling that just happened last month goes against the previous report from this judge that was essentially put in place by Trudeau. From my understanding, the first report, it wasn't actually, this is the first time that there was an actual trial just last month. So the first report that sided with Trudeau, there wasn't an actual trial beforehand. Is that correct?
You're absolutely right. That was a political appointment. Trudeau created that commission, and Judge Rouleau was the chair of that commission. And as you may know, Rouleau was appointed a judge by the Trudeau government. So, but that was not, that was just a commission looking at what Trudeau did during that time when he invoked the Emergencies Act. So, but that wasn't a decision. Now we had, since last week, some Canadians that decided to sue the federal government about that. And the judge looked at the facts and all the evidence, said that you're right, Trudeau didn't have any justification to invoke that act. And that being said, that was illegal and unconstitutional.
So given this recent federal court ruling, we now have a judge. There's actually been a trial that ruled that Trudeau's use of the Emergencies Act during the protest was unconstitutional. This is just adding to Trudeau's past many corruption scandals in the past and ethics violations. Naturally, questions about accountability are going to arise. I know many Canadians and many in my audience wonder about the consequences for leaders who overstep legal boundaries or violate constitutional rights. It's great to expose these issues, but what actually happens afterward? How does the PPC view the issue of accountability in Canadian politics, particularly concerning elected officials and government leaders who are found to have acted unlawfully or unconstitutionally?
Yes, It's too bad that in our country we don't have a legislation, a repeal legislation. It's a legislation that will allow, if we can have a legislation like that at the federal government, would be able to allow any citizen to start a petition in the middle of a mandate of a politician, start a petition in his or her riding to ask people to have a new election right now to get rid of that politician if that politician didn't do what he was supposed to do. But we don't have that kind of legislation, so we need to wait until the general election. And at the general election, a lot of people will want to get rid of Justin Trudeau, but that will be the only consequence of his actions. But that's why the position of the People's Party of Canada is to ask for a full inquiry about everything that happened during COVID-19, starting about everything must be public, the full contract that Trudeau signed with the big pharma on the vaccine, and knowing we need to know more, because now, after 2 years, we know that the vaccine was not safe and effective. How come they were telling us that the vaccine was safe and effective 2 years ago? So our position is to have a public inquiry about everything that happened, to be sure that would put lights of that dark history of our country. We didn't respect the Constitution, our Charter of Rights. In Quebec, we had curfew. We were saying to people to stay at home. People who didn't have any symptoms, we were asking them to stay at home. So, that was not in line with our Charter of Rights. We need to put lights on that, and I hope that we'll be able to do that after getting rid of the Trudeau government.
Moving on to a different topic, Mr. Bernier, Canada is currently facing a significant housing crisis characterized by rising costs and affordability challenges, especially impacting young Canadians. The surge in non-permanent residents, such as international students, has notably contributed to this crisis. You recently shared an article that highlighted that from 2011 to 2023, the number of international students in Canada surged from 240,000 to 900,000. Obviously intensifying pressure on the rental market and compounding affordability issues. In this National Post article, you shared this on Twitter, it also highlighted the unprecedented surge in Canadian rents, with average rates rising at twice the rate of inflation in the past year. Obviously, many working class Canadians can't afford to buy a home, so renting is their own option. Even that's becoming very difficult. In light of this, you've emphasized the pressing need to confront mass immigration as a significant driver for the housing crisis. Given this context, how do you envision aligning Canada's immigration policies with the urgent need to address housing affordability and availability for Canadian citizens? Could you outline any specific measures that you believe should be implemented to alleviate the strain on the rental market and ensure adequate housing provisions for Canadians?
But the only solution for that, the only solution that would be effective right now, it's a question of supply and demand. You need to stop mass immigration. All these people, international students, foreign temporary workers, and permanent immigrants, all these people will need a roof. And the only way to stop that is to stop mass immigration. If you try to work on the supply side, and you want to build more houses, you won't be able to do that. It will take years to do it. Actually, we used to build 230,000 houses a year. That's what we did last year. And we did the same thing 25 years ago. So to be able to have enough houses for Canadians, and you'll need to build about 450 houses a year. So it would be impossible to do that. So to be able to solve that problem is to stop mass immigration. And at the same time, also, when I'm speaking about that, I'm speaking about permanent resident, permanent immigrants. but also, like you just said, international students. Now in Canada, international students it's a way to found the university. It's a way for Canadian university to have more money because they don't want to increase fees to their students. And also you have a fake school that, are just, offering a diploma. But in reality, what they're offering is the Canadian citizens using, the way of international students to be able to do that. So, 900,000 international students, we need to cut that. It must be around 200,000, and that's it. And same thing for foreign workers. When you have a lot of people that are coming to Canada, that's an unfair competition for Canadians. Because if a big business is not able to find a person for a job, maybe they are not offering the right salary. Maybe that business will need to raise the salary. And like that, maybe they will be able to have more Canadians for that job. And if they don't want to do that, to raise salary, and that's what they don't want to do right now, so they're going to the government and asking the government for temporary foreign workers that in the end are not temporary. They're coming for 1, 2, 3 years, and after that they renewed their permit. So we must not allow that. We must tell big business, if you don't increase the salary and you don't want to do that, or you're doing it and you don't have anybody, the best solution for you will be to invest in more productivity, automatization, and robotic and all that. That's the real solution. When people are telling me, Maxime, we need more people because we have a lack of manpower. But we have a lack of manpower since but I must say for the last 5 years, and at every year we increased the number of foreign workers. So it's not the solution. It was not the solution 5 years ago, and it's not the solution today. And the real solution for a lack of manpower is for businesses and entrepreneurs to invest in a more productive way. So robotic, more, being more productive, investing in capital, that is a solution. So yes, we will cut also temporary foreign workers. We may be able to allow that only for the agriculture sector. As you know, Canadians doesn't want to work in the field anymore. It's very difficult for our farmers. So maybe that is justified. But, for Tim Hortons or McDonald's, if they don't want to increase the salary for having Canadians, just don't grow, but it won't be the solution for them.
You share, just related to this and touching on the upcoming federal election, potentially in 2025, I know you're aware of the story of the 700 international students who entered the country with fake documents. I saw that you shared a clip of Pierre Poilievre supporting the students. Maybe I could just briefly share. I know you've seen the clip. If I could just play it quickly, I'll screen share. It's 1.5 minutes, and I'd like to get your comments if I could.
Yeah.
I'll just play the video briefly.
The letters on the front end and said that they were problematic, told the students to get better, accurate, real admission letters in the beginning. And then we wouldn't be in this mess here today. And then 4 years later, they come along and say that that the Trudeau government is going to kick the students out of Canada. The solution is obvious. End the deportations, allow everyone who applied honestly but who was defrauded to continue to keep their work or study permit, and allow them to apply just like everyone else to become permanent residents. That's what I'm calling for. Stop the deportations. Listen, we have a worker shortage in Canada. We have a demographic problem. Our population is too old. We need 700 young people. We need 700 young people to work in our factories, in our hospitals, in our shopping centers, driving truck, being accountants, lawyers, doctors. We need these workers in our country. It makes no sense for Canada to send them back when they could stay here and earn powerful paychecks and raise their families in peace. So, shame on Justin Trudeau for trying to deport these wonderful students. Stop the deportations. Keep the students here. Allow them to apply just like everyone else for permanent residency. The Conservatives will continue to fight for the students.
So I'm sure you have a different opinion on that issue. Could you share your thoughts about that?
Yes, absolutely. We have legislation in Canada, and everybody must respect the legislation. Nobody is above the law. And these 700 students came here illegally with fake documents. So no, there's a legislation. And when that happens, it's deportation. The solution is deportation. And Poilievre is saying that because, you know, he's pandering to the ethnic community. And for him, he wants to have the support of every riding where there is a big ethnic community. But no, it's not good for the country. We must deport them as soon as possible. And when he said, you know, the population is aging, he has a point there. But the solution, a very serious study by Statistics Canada just said that, you know, our immigration system is not helping to change the aging of our population, because the huge majority of immigrants are older. They're not young. When you have young students, it's okay, but it's not the majority. With you have more than 1 million newcomers every year, and the average age average is not young. It's old. So if you want to be sure to fix the aging of our population, you may have policies that will encourage a young couple to have kids. But right now, with the housing crisis, and like you said, the affordability to buy a house or to rent an apartment in big cities, it's very, very expensive. And also it's small in small cities, it is also. So there's no incentive for a couple to have kids. And I saw a survey like lately, and young couple was saying, you know, we want to have kids, but we want to have kids in a house. So when we'll have a house, we'll have kids. So, you know, there's because of mass immigration, there's a lot of people that are coming here, that putting pressure on the housing prices. And that pressure is putting pressure on the young couple for not having kids because they're not able to buy a house. And because they're not able to have kids, we want to have more people coming to Canada. That's not the solution. The common sense solution, and I will use the word common sense that Poilievre is always using, but for him, it's a slogan. For us, it's the reality. The real common sense solution is to end mass immigration, deport the fake students, and also not only that, but cut the number of students that can come to Canada, like it was 5 years ago.
Another factor contributing to the housing crisis, I haven't actually seen you directly asked about this in any other interviews so far, but people talk about the factor contributing to the housing crisis, obviously immigration being one, but also the presence of foreign and private investment firms, which are buying up single family homes and impacting the availability of affordable housing, particularly middle and working class Canadians. How do you address the influence of corporate investors in the housing market? What measures do the PPC advocate for to ensure that housing remains accessible for all Canadians, regardless of their economic status?
It's happening mostly in Vancouver and more than in any other cities. So, and I know that, you know, in Vancouver, the city over there passed some regulations to try to manage that. But it's, you know, it's mostly a jurisdiction coming from the provincial level. Like, you know, when Poilievre is saying we need to scrap all the regulations on you know, municipal regulations and change the zoning to be able to allow the, you know, big towers that will have a lot of people in a small apartment, but that's also a provincial and municipal jurisdictions. So Poilievre cannot do that. So what he can do as a federal politician is to end mass immigration. And that will be the solution. You don't need, and you know, the Canadian dream for a family is not to live in an apartment at the 55th floor and having kids over there. We don't want to be like Hong Kong. We, you know, but Poilievre, that's his plan. He wants all, you know, at every bus stations and metro station, the big towers, and for people to live there. No, when people, what people want, it's a house and with grass that they can play outside with their kids. And that's not the solution. The solution is to end mass immigration. That will make sure that the housing crisis will go down and prices will go down.
That question, that answer definitely answers this next question in part, but how do you further differentiate yourself and the People's Party of Canada against Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives as the real alternative to Trudeau and the Liberals?
But, you know, I'm always saying that Poilievre and Trudeau are the same. It's I call them the LibCon party because they're the same on the most important issues for the future of our country. We just spoke about immigration. Poilievre is like Trudeau. He thinks that the solution is on the side of the supply side and building more houses when he cannot control that. And, you know, it's on, and all these regulations for building houses are mostly under the provincial jurisdictions. And so he's like Trudeau on that. Poilievre is like Trudeau on another example, climate change. Poilievre won't impose a carbon tax, I understand that, but you know, he will impose more regulations on businesses to fight climate change. And when you have regulation, that's always a cost, and that business will transfer the cost to consumers. And he will also give subsidies to the green industry. Like Trudeau, the only exception is he won't impose a carbon tax, but like Trudeau, he will participate in the Paris Accord. He will fix goals to fight climate change. And the problem is the Paris Accord, and we will withdraw from the Paris Accord. We won't impose any regulations. We won't impose any taxes on Canadians or businesses. We won't give any subsidies to the green industry. We won't do nothing for climate change because, you know, there's no climate crisis. And CO2 is not a pollutant. CO2 is what is the food for plant, and it's a gas for life. So that's a big difference with us and the conservative and the liberals. You know, I can go on the transgender ideology. Poilievre just said recently that he's against giving puberty blockers to minors, but it took him 5 years to say that. But he didn't tell us what he will do. If he's serious about that, he may be able to bring a legislation in Parliament and changing the criminal code to prohibit the use of puberty blockers to minors. But he won't do that. He just said it, and that's it. But we need to do something like that. We need to protect our kids, and Poilievre, like Trudeau, won't do anything to protect our kids. So, and he is afraid to speak about the radical gender ideology. He won't say that there's only two sexes. For him, it's too risky, but it's based on biology. So Poilievre is like Trudeau. He is another kind of a woke politician. And that's why I'm saying he doesn't have any conviction. He's doing politics by survey and polling. And if polls are showing something different, he will change his position on a subject. So there's a huge difference between us and the establishment political parties like the Conservative and the Liberal. We are different, and on these issues, and I can go on, you know, the equalization formula, for example. Western Canadians are fed up, and they want a federal government that will be fair for them. Now, they are paying a lot of money in the equalization formula that is going to other provinces. We need to stop that. We need to change the equalization formula to be less generous. And that formula must be fair for every province, but it's not the case anymore. Poilievre is taking the vote of Western Canadians for granted. So, it's very different, and that's why I left the Conservative Party, and that's why I said that the Conservative Party is morally and intellectually corrupt. They are not conservative; they're only conservative in name. They're afraid of speaking about real family conservative values because that is not popular these days. And we are living in a socialist era. And for him, his goal is to be in power, and that's it. And to be in power, he will need the support of big liberals, cities like Montreal, Toronto, and Vancouver. There's more seats around Toronto than in all Alberta. And so he's pandering to them, like he just did in that video, pandering to immigrants groups and telling them what they want to hear. And he will give them more immigrants. And so that's not the solution.
You discuss the unique role of the PPC as a party that sticks to its values and doesn't change what they say based on polls and pandering. How does the PPC plan to stick to these principles and still expand its voter base, especially with new immigrants coming in and other groups that might not share the same values? How does the PPC continue to still attract more support going to the next election?
I believe we can have support from some immigrants. I mean, the immigrants who came here a long time ago, and that was very difficult to be Canadian at that time. You have to speak English or French, and you have to wait for a long time. It was a privilege to be Canadian, and they decided to come. And it took them years to be able to come here. And now they're like us. They're looking at the open borders immigration policy, and they don't like that. It's not fair. And so we can have some support from some immigrants speaking about abolishing mass immigration. But yes, we will grow. For example, from 2019 to 2021, from 1.6% to 5%, we triple our score. So maybe we can double our score at the next election from 5 to 10. We will grow. And I believe that we may be able to have some candidates elected. We will start that common sense and peaceful revolution together. And the time is on our side. What will help us and help me as the leader of the People's Party of Canada at the next election, it's because, it will be a little bit different than the last one. I will be able to participate in the national debates on TV against Trudeau and Poilievre, and that will give us more visibility. People will see that we are not scared, we are answering questions, we have a plan for this country, we have a vision for this country, and I'm looking forward. That would be fun to debate against Poilievre and Trudeau.
Yeah, that would be really fun to watch for sure. How does the PPC plan to address criticisms and misconceptions about its policies and platform during the election campaign? Obviously, the coverage from the CBC and other legacy media outlets has not been fair in most of their coverage of the party. How do you counter these narratives, and what strategies does the PPC have in place to overcome electoral barriers such as limited media coverage and funding compared to larger political parties?
Yeah, for funding, for example, at the last election, we spent $1.4 million during that election in 2021. If you compare that with the big establishment parties like the Conservatives and the Liberals, they spend around $30 million. So at the next election, our goal is to spend maybe $4 million. And we are, we're raising money for that, and we'll be ready for that election. We'll have a candidate in every riding, and it's it's difficult with the mainstream media. They don't want to cover us, as you may know, but I believe that we need to speak about what we believe. We need to speak about our policies, not just during the election, but before the election, and that's what I'm doing. And I'm asking people, go on our website, read our platform, peoplespartyofcanada.ca, and click platform. You're going to be able to read it on every subject. It's only 2 pages. So, and I will ask you also to go on the website of the Conservative Party of Canada and try to find Pierre Poilievre's platform. You won't find it because Poilievre doesn't know what he will believe in when the time of the election will come. He will need to do polling and focus group. So, because maybe the public opinion will change from now to up to the next election. So that's why Poilievre is not, is a fake conservative and conservative only name. So go and find that Pierre Poilievre's platform on the Conservative Party of Canada.ca. You won't find it. So yes, you have to speak about our ideas with passion and with conviction. And during the election, I believe that because we'll participate in the national debates, the mainstream media will be in a position to speak about us at least a couple of days before the debate and couple of days after the debate. So we may have more visibility. But, I'm not so concerned about that also, because more and more people are looking to their news in social media, and we have independent social media, and the legacy media, they're not credible anymore, and their business model is not working, and so they are just still active right now and in business right now because of the subsidies that they're receiving from the federal government. We need to cut that. And like that, the best one will survive, and CBC may not survive. That's, in a capitalist country, that's what is supposed to happen. But no, that's why I'm doing also podcasts with you and other people. That's a nice opportunity for me to speak about our platform. And I want to thank you for giving me that opportunity.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bernier, for joining today, providing your valuable insights. It's been a pleasure discussing these critical topics with you. For more information about the People's Party of Canada, you can visit www.peoplespartyofcanada.ca. Do you have any final comments or a call to action for those watching who care about these issues?
Yeah, if you care about these issues, be vocal, be active, stand up and speak out. Don't be ashamed of your values and what you believe in. If you don't speak, we won't be able to grow our support. So we need each one of you to be out there. And if you go on our website and read our platform, you'll have all these arguments to be able to have a discussion with your friends and your family. It's so important. You need to know a little bit more about politics if you want to start that common sense revolution.
Thank you. You can follow Maxime Bernier on Twitter. You can also follow me at Reality Reader on Twitter. Thanks again, Mr. Bernier. I hope we can have another discussion soon. Take care and goodbye.
Thank you very much. We will. Have a nice day.
Thank you.